According to the General Hospital recap for Thursday, August 28, Michael Corinthos turned down Drew Kane's request for shared custody, while Portia Robinson and Isaiah Gannon heated things up behind closed doors. At the Quartermaine home, Martin Gray updated Tracy Quartermaine on Drew's involvement in Stella Henry's arrest and pleaded for her assistance. Tracy agreed to assist Stella, but she stressed her activities would be distinct from Martin's. Brooklyn Quartermaine told Dante Falconeri at the police station about her contact with Giovanni Gio Palmieri at the church and how he could use more help on his adoptive mother's birthday. Dante soon joined Gio there and made inroads by telling him a nice story about when Gio was a baby. Gio wasn't interested in being close to Dante, but he did appear to accept Dante's apologies for all that transpired when Rocco Falconeri was sick. Back at the PCPD, Alexis Davis arrived to assist Stella with her legal situation in the questioning room. Trina Robinson also told Sonny Corinthos that Drew was too accountable for Stella's trauma, so Sonny warned Alexis that Drew would get what he deserved. Jen Sidwell was furious at Windmere after Marco Rios admitted to telling Drew about the judge's bribes. Marco prophesied Drew would act on it, and Michael would turn against Sonny, causing him to lose his son. Marco believed that Natalia Ramirez had received justice. Sidwell had planned to use this power for Sonny's peers, but Marco was unconcerned about them. Nonetheless, Sidwell was enraged by Marco's error of judgment and felt they needed to focus on any negative consequences. Sidwell highlighted the significance of reaching Judge Eva Heron before Sonny did. In Portia's office at GH, she exploded at Curtis Ashford because she believed his heart had always belonged to Jordan. Curtis became enraged and revealed that he had been attempting to bury all of his animosity toward Portia so that they could be a family again, but it was plainly failing. Curtis ultimately agreed to deal with the Stella matter, but Portia believed he was unwilling to fight for them. Portia insisted that if Curtis stepped out that door, their marriage would end. Curtis did indeed walk out, so Portia shattered a framed portrait from their wedding day and began attempting to remove her ring. Meanwhile, Isaiah yelled at Jordan about her residual feelings for Curtis, believing that they'd never really had a chance as a pair because of it. Afterward, Isaiah joined Portia in her office and discovered her still fiddling with her ring. As Isaiah tried to calm Portia down, he took her hands and removed the ring. Moments later, passion exploded between Portia and Isaiah, and they made out as the clothing came off. Portia's ring ended up on the floor, near to the destroyed wedding photo frame. Drew arrived at Aurora and warned Michael that he was going to allow Willow to visit the children and apologize. Drew stated that Michael would admit to the children that he made a mistake and would agree to split custody 50-50 with Willow. Drew threatened that if Michael did not assist, he would reveal the $1 million payment made to Judge Heron the night before they appeared in court. Drew resented Sonny for the bribing and was positive that the initial custody decision would be overturned. Drew also hinted at leveraging his influence to secure a more favorable judge the next time around. Michael refused to surrender to Drew, believing that if any proof existed, it was false. Now that Drew was working this angle, Michael advised postponing the visitation hearing indefinitely. Drew called Kai Taylor as he was leaving to ask for help finding Carly Spencer. Drew returned to his own office and left Willow a hopeful voicemail. Curtis barged in and cut the connection because he had a threat to make. Curtis pledged that if Drew would not halt his crusade against his family, he would end Drew. Back with Michael, he summoned Sonny and informed him of Drew's suspicions regarding the bribed judge. Sonny insisted he was innocent, which Michael already believed. Although Sonny believed they needed to acquire answers from Judge Heron, Sidwell appeared to be preparing to get rid of her and hide his participation. According to General Hospital spoilers, Sidwell and Sonny's battle is far from finished, so keep an eye on CDL for all of the unexpected twists. General Hospital spoilers claim that viewers have had enough. Of course, everyone is discussing the Drew Quartermaine and Willow Tate plotline. Simply said, fans want it to be over already. Is the Drew and Willow story going to end soon? Even though both actors do an excellent job of bringing out the worst in their characters, the audience has had enough at this time. Some people believe Drew is killed, Willow is institutionalized, Nellie Benson returns from the grave to reclaim Wiley, and havoc erupts from there. Obviously, seeds of a Drew murder are being planted all across Port Charles, with many people believing it will be Sidwell. It goes without saying that the internet had a lot to say about the situation. Some General Hospital fans and critics even remarked, "I also believe that with so many other great storylines going on, Drew and Willow do not need to be front and center. There are a lot of other more important things going on, and I get the tone-deaf impression that the showrunners believe Drew and Willow are the storyline." Another critic wrote, "The show has too many balls in the air. Partially explains why this occurs. And of course there is the reactivation of characters like Britt, Lyle, and soon Nathan." General Hospital spoilers. Is the Drew and Willow storyline coming to an end? What's next for Drew and Willow? No daytime drama series is without issues. But choices must be made. They're being made. And one that has been made for months is to suggest that there would be big drama with the Drew and Willow plot. There was also this comment. "Remember how we were all so delighted when Willow dropped Drew over the Nina revelation? We were relieved to be done with those two." Of course, GH fans will have to tune in every day to see what happens next. ABC broadcasts General Hospital on weekdays. Check the local listings for times. For now, let us know what you think by leaving a comment in the section below. Michael stood in the living room of his small apartment, the late afternoon sun shining through the windows and sending striped shadows on the hardwood floor. His jaw was set, his hands deep in the pockets of his pants as he faced Drew, his ex-husband, who perched on the edge of the couch with a well-controlled expression. The air between them was tense, as it had been for the past year since their separation. Drew's presence here in what was once their joint home seemed like an intrusion, a reminder of everything that had happened. Michael had consented to attend meeting out of necessity rather than desire, but he had not expected Drew to deliver the bombshell. "I'm not asking for much, Michael," Drew responded, his tone calm but determined. "We have shared custody of Lily. 50-50. It's only fair for her." He leaned forward, elbows on knees, his black eyes scanning Michael's face for a reply. Michael felt a hot, biting flash of wrath rise up inside him, but he pushed himself to remain quiet and steady his voice. Even though they couldn't agree on much else, they did still agree on one thing. They loved Lily, their 6-year-old daughter. Michael's stomach churned at the thought of sharing her time evenly between them, like a luggage being shuttled back and forth. He had been her primary caregiver since their divorce, packing her lunches, doing her hair, and reading her bedtime stories. Drew, on the other hand, had been traveling to conferences, advancing his career, and making weekend visits when it suited him. "No," Michael responded, the word coming out more forcefully than he intended. He crossed his arms, resisting the temptation to pace. "Lily needs stability, Drew. She's content here. She has her routine, school, and friends. You can't simply go in and demand half her life when you've barely been there." Drew's expression tensed, a glimpse of pain crossing his features before he hit it with a hesitant nod. He stood there, smoothing the front of his fitted blazer, and Michael couldn't help but note how out of place he appeared in the comfortable, congested environment. Drew had always been slick and ambitious, the type of man who excelled in boardrooms and networking events. Michael, with his paint-splattered trousers and freelance graphic designer schedule, didn't quite fit in. "I've been around," Drew responded, his voice low but forceful. "I have called every week. I took her whenever I could. I'm her father, Michael, not some slacker. I want more time with her, and I'm not going to let you control our daughter." The charge stung and Michael's resolve hardened. Gatekeep? He'd been the one who kept their family together as Drew pursued his next promotion. He opened his lips to respond, but the sound of Lily laughing in the backyard stopped him. She was out there with her best buddy, unaware of the turmoil brewing inside. Michael took a deep breath and forced himself to concentrate. This was not about him or Drew, it was about her. "I'm not gatekeeping," Michael responded, his voice softer but no less determined. "I am protecting her. Do you want more time? Prove your ability to remain consistent. Show there to her soccer games and school plays, not just the fun ones. You can't cherry-pick fatherhood." Drew's jaw twitched, but he didn't immediately answer. Instead, he glanced toward the window, his gaze traveling to the garden, where Lily's giggles echoed through the open screen door. Michael watched him, wondering if Drew was reconsidering his request or simply biding his time. Drew finally spoke after a long, awkward silence. "I'll talk to my lawyer," he said, his tone clipped. "If we can't work this out, I'll take it to court." The threat lingered in the air, cold and definite. Michael felt a pinch of fear, but he refused to show it. He would fight for Lily no matter what. Drew took his keys from the coffee table and walked towards the door, pausing briefly to add, "I'm not the enemy here, Michael. I just want my daughter." And then he was gone, the door closing behind him, leaving Michael alone with the weight of his words. Across town, in a sleek downtown loft, Portia adjusted the strap of her dress in front of the floor-length mirror, her reflection gleaming in the warm light from the chandelier. The scarlet cloth caressed her curves, a daring choice for the art opening she was attending tonight, but she felt electric in it, alive as she hadn't in months. Her phone vibrated on the dresser, and she looked at the screen. Isaiah. She smiled as she received his text. "Can't wait to meet you tonight. Wear something that will make you forget your own name." She giggled, her fingers speeding across the keyboard as she composed a flirtatious response. Isaiah had a way of making her feel as if she were the only one in the room, even in a throng of hundreds. Their chemistry was evident, beginning 3 months ago when they met at a mutual friend's art show. Portia slid on her heels, her actions confident yet deliberate, as if she was enjoying the suspense of the evening. She and Isaiah had been dancing around each other since that first night, their bond strengthening with each late-night discussion and stolen glimpse. He was a sculptor, his hands rough from working with clay and stone, but he had a softness about him that took her by surprise. She'd spent years erecting barriers around her heart after a succession of failed relationships, but Isaiah had a way of getting past her defenses, his calm intensity drawing her in like a moth to a flame. When she arrived at the gallery, it was already humming with activity. Abstract paintings dotted the walls, their brilliant hues clashing and mixing in ways that caused her to halt, her artist's eye focusing on every detail. She saw Isaiah across the room, resting against a pillar with a glass of wine in his hand. He was dressed in a cut black shirt and slacks, his dark hair slightly unkempt, and the moment his gaze met hers, the rest of the room faded. He moved across the space in a few big strides, his smile warm and playful. "Your trouble," he said quietly as he moved in to kiss her cheek. The brush of his lips sent a thrill down her spine, and she tilted her head to meet his stare with a playful challenge. "Only the good kind," she said, and his chuckle was deep and rich, making her heart skip. They walked through the museum together, their shoulders brushing as they paused to view a particularly striking piece. A swirl of blues and golds that appeared to pulse with energy. Isaiah's hand touched the small of her back, a gentle but possessive move that made her heart race. As the night progressed, their discussion flowed naturally, alternating between art, dreams, and playful banter that felt like foreplay. Portia found herself opening up in unexpected ways, telling him about her youth sketching in her grandmother's garden and her dread of failure, which kept her from picking up a paintbrush. Isaiah listened intently, his gaze never leaving hers, and when he related his own experiences, growing up in a tiny town, teaching himself to sculpt with borrowed tools, she sensed a connection that went beyond infatuation. They seemed to be working together to create something tangible. Back at Michael's flat, the evening had settled into a more relaxed pace. Lily was nestled into bed, her favorite stuffed rabbit gripped in her arms, her breathing slow and steady. Michael sat at the kitchen table with a half-empty mug of coffee in front of him, and his laptop open to a blank document. He'd intended to focus on a freelancing job, but his thoughts kept returning to Drew's remarks. Court. The thought of lawyers and courts deciding Lily's fate made his chest tighten. He'd always prided himself on being the calm one, capable of handling anything, but this was too much. He rubbed his fingers across his face, attempting to force the horror away. The doorbell rang, frightening him. He looked at the clock, nearly 9. It was too late for a delivery, and his buddies knew not to show up uninvited. He opened the door to see Portia, her coat slung over one arm, her face a mix of concern and determination. "I heard what happened," she announced, entering without waiting for an invitation. Michael had texted her earlier, a brief ranting session over Drew's demand, and now she was there, her presence a calming force in the jumble of his thoughts. "He's not taking her," Michael replied, his voice hoarse as he shut the door behind her. Portia placed her coat on the back of a chair and turned to face him, her dark eyes unwavering. "He won't," she stated confidently. "You're a terrific father, Michael. Any judge would notice that. However, you must approach this with caution. Get a lawyer and construct your case. Don't allow him bully you into anything. Her remarks were practical, yet they had a loving tone to them, reminding him that he was not alone. Portia had been his best friend since college, seeing him through all of his highs and lows, and her loyalty was now a lifeline. They sat on the couch and Michael told her everything. The disagreement, Drew's warning, and the worry that had been plaguing him since. Portia listened, her palm lightly resting on his arm, and when he finished she leaned back with a thoughtful face. "You're stronger than you think," she remarked. "And Lily is blessed to have you. But you also need to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." Michael nodded, the weight of her words falling on him. She was correct as always. He couldn't let the conflict overtake him. Meanwhile, at the gallery, Isaiah and Portia had slipped out onto the rooftop patio, the city skyline dazzling in the background. The air was chilly, a nice change from the heat of the crowded museum, and they stood close, their shoulders practically touching. Isaiah reached for her hand, his fingers threading through it, and Portia felt a surge of warmth run through her. "I could get used to this," he replied quietly but seriously. She stared up at him, her pulse hammering, and for a little minute, she allowed herself to envisage a future in which nights like these were the norm, and she didn't have to guard her heart as hard. "Me too," she said, barely above a whisper. Isaiah's smile was slow and deliberate, and when he leaned in to kiss her, it was as if the universe shifted, falling into place. The kiss began softly, exploratory, but gradually developed, with a passionate edge that left them both breathless. When they parted ways, Portia chuckled, slightly disoriented, and Isaiah's grin was pure mischief. "Told you," he said. "Trouble." Back at Michael's, the conversation had switched to lighter matters, with Portia regaling him with stories from the gallery opening, her enthusiasm for Isaiah bubbling over. Michael listened, a little smile pulling on his lips despite the weight in his chest. Her pleasure was contagious, a reminder that life continues even in the middle of conflict. As she left, vowing to return tomorrow, Michael felt a glimmer of hope. He would battle for Lily, and he would not be alone. Portia's strength, Isaiah's spark, they all fit together, like pieces of a puzzle he was still trying to solve. For the time being, that was enough. Jocelyn struggled to retain her composure during these interactions. Every attempt to contact Willow was received with skepticism or diversion, and the dread she had felt at that first interaction stayed like a shadow in her daily existence. She couldn't shake the idea that Willow's delicate grip on reality may crack at any time, causing unanticipated repercussions. Meanwhile, Britt's mind was continuously working, evaluating, predicting, and calculating her next move, aware that a single blunder may exacerbate the situation. The combination of observation, patience, and cautious involvement became her lifeline as she attempted to safeguard Willow and others around her. Despite her explosive disposition, Trina realized that the storm she had created required careful navigating. Her rage, while cathartic in the moment, had unexpected consequences, inflaming Willow's paranoia and heightening the overall tension. She found herself balancing voicing her feelings and unintentionally fueling the pandemonium, aware that her every word and gesture suddenly had serious ramifications. The emotional environment around them had altered, and what had once been minor disagreements now felt like life-or-death situations in a high-stakes psychological thriller. Even as the days passed, Willow's delusions, Jocelyn's horror, Britt's distrust, and Trina's volatile temperament shaped every contact. Friends and family who attempted to intervene encountered a quagmire of emotions, anxieties, and hidden motives. Each interaction could spark a new quarrel, each decision had repercussions, and trust became a scarce and fragile resource. The interactions between the four ladies created an almost palpable tension, a force that drew everyone into its orbit, whether they wanted to or not. In this volatile setting, no one was immune from emotional contagion. Willow's instability strained the connections around her, requiring everyone to confront painful facts about themselves, their loyalty, and their ability to cope with strong psychological pressure. Every day brought new obstacles, disclosures, and emotional hazards, forcing them all to walk a fragile line between comprehension and fear, control and anarchy. The atmosphere was fraught with suspense, as if the delicate equilibrium may fracture at any moment, resulting in ramifications that no one could entirely predict or control.